With Tankfest this weekend, we got a special Friday dev stream showcasing a bit more than we usually get. So let's break down what they shared, from requested features and reverts to 5 new tanks to look over and other announcements. Let's start with some tanks. The first big thing they revealed, other than the 4005 skin and Desert Warrior tank, which were things we already knew about, were 3 new tanks coming very soon, 2 of which will be released this Tuesday. The first being a Tier 8 American Premium Medium Tank, the M26 Pershing T99. Yeah, a Pershing with rockets. Looking at its stats, it has the stock turret of the Pershing and the stock reload speed, but the upgraded 90mm penetration values. So it's the top gun on the Pershing without the reload penalty for the pen. It also has 10 more HP than the fully upgraded Pershing, and despite having rockets loaded onto it, it somehow has better power-to-weight ratio than both the stock and fully upgraded Pershings, even though it has the same horsepower. Other stats include 48 km/h top speed, 390 base view range, a .36 accuracy with a 2.1 second aim time, and 10 degrees of gun depression. As for those rockets, they do 300 damage apiece if you can pen with their 72mm of penetration, and have 4 rockets in a clip with only a .33 second intra, meaning you can dump out 1200 potential damage in just 1 second. Good luck arty players. You then reload for 10.9 seconds base, which you can definitely get down below 10 seconds, and you hold 44 rockets for 11 total salvos. The DPM is 6000, but remember the low pen, and they only go 264 meters per second. But they will still cause you trouble even in armored tanks, as they will splash like HE and hit multiple times if you let them, for module damage as well. So it's a stock Pershing turret wise, but better than the regular Pershing in terms of having the same pen but a better reload, and slightly more HP and horsepower per ton on top of also having rockets. I do mention all of this heavily because it's odd, but I also must say that this season we got a balanced pass on many nations in World War II, and they did mention in this stream that you can expect another balance pass on more World War II tanks next season. So, because of this tank, I'm expecting to see a Pershing reload buff at the very least for that top gun, so do keep that in mind. Otherwise, it is just a better Pershing with rockets. The second tank to be released this Tuesday is the XM1 GM Heavy Tank, which is some Abrams prototype making its way to Era 2 Cold War. It has 3000 hit points, 28 power to weight ratio with a 72.5 km/h top speed, 10 degrees of gun depression on its 105mm gun that does 480 alpha damage on its standard APFSDS round with 421 pen and 1500 cell speed, and then drops to 460 damage on its premium heat round that only gives you 9 extra pen at 430 and 1173 shell speed. Heat is already not preferred in Cold War, especially eras 2 and 3, and to only give 9 extra pen while lowering your damage and speed seems a bit odd in an era with hella spaced armor. While the 421 pen isn't terrible, it's all you're going to have on this tank because those heat rounds look pretty unwanted. I'm not a Cold War player though, so I say this just from reading stats and understanding player sentiment on heat rounds in the past. But anyway, continuing on, it reloads in 8 seconds base for a DPM of 3600, with a .35 accuracy and 1.7 seconds aim time. It holds 55 rounds and has 470 base view range. The third tank they showcased has no release date as of yet, but I would presume it will come within this season's timeline, and that is the Tier 8 French Premium Light Tank, the ERAC 105 Proto. All we know so far is that it is a light tank that looks sort of big, as it is an amphibious tank in real life, and clearly has a 105mm gun that was said to have high alpha. I'm hoping it only hits for 360 at the most, but we'll have to wait and see. Otherwise, this is the only tank I'd be interested in between these 3, and of course it's the one we have to wait a little bit longer on. For now though, the previous 2 mentioned tanks will be available Tuesday like mentioned. Moving on from tanks, they talk about game improvements and additions in the next segment, and firstly they highlight something that we had asked for a while back. They are reverting the MoE system to how it was in 2015, they say. I do find it odd they mentioned 2015 and not saying something like before 6.0 or when the MoE change happened 2 years ago or something. Now, what was that change? They specifically say that they are reintroducing the map performance factor into the MoE, which was something they called a handicap back when they removed it and Pain God was still around on the Friday streams. It's something that takes into account what class of tank you're playing and what map you got, and gives a little leeway if the map was not ideal for your class. Best example I can give is if you play on a city map in a light tank, you're given a little wiggle room on the mark since the map is not ideal for that tank class. Again, this was called a handicap back when Pangon mentioned they removed it way back when, but he also mentioned something else back when they changed marks initially a few years ago. He said that the mark calculation was wrong and people were likely 5% higher than they should have been for the most part, so they fixed a calculation error on top of removing the map handicap. That, however, was not mentioned being reverted here. So, we'll see how marks really change when we get our hands on it in the next season. Because yes, this revert is happening next season. So we will have to wait a while. Also worth mentioning is that they said this change is only happening for 1 to 3 marks, and the 4th mark, or the gold mark, will stay the same. I suppose meaning that once you 3 mark a tank, you will no longer get that wiggle room on maps not ideal for your class, from grinding 95 to 100%. So the 100% grind will stay the same. Not sure how I feel about that personally. But moving on, another feature they showcased was the ability to respec a single skill on a commander rather than having to do all 9 every time. This is good quality of life, but wow, did we have to wait forever annoyingly. They even do joke about how long it took. Personally, I think it's absurd the wait time on some things like this, but it's also always the case that it's just not prioritized because it's seen as a minor thing. But to me, that sort of feels like a cop-out answer, because of course, quality of life improvements aren't seen as major improvements, and major improvements are always being added to the prioritization list. So when something is put on the back burner, such as this, then you get long and long wait times on them being implemented. We are still waiting on, and we're told and teased, that we are getting something of a tank filter for the stats page. Still waiting on that too. But come on, man, you guys can do this a lot quicker than you're letting out. Anyway, the last thing from this segment is a tease for the next map where they showed 2 images. One of a side of a building and another of a building's door. My best guess for this map is Province, which will be interesting to see how it's brought back and what tiers it'll play up to. Leave your best guess in the comments and we'll see which one of us gets it right. But much like the MoE changes, all these things are coming next season. What's not coming next season is everything on this roadmap they gave us. Now, my expectations going into this roadmap were a little high, and I will say it was a little disappointing, but we technically did get more news than we usually get, with a very big grain of salt. Starting off, they do announce that in August we will be getting a new Cold War line. And that right there is where the new news ends, basically. Because then in September we have Talk Like a Pirate Day, October we have Halloween, November we have Black Tank sales, and December we have holiday stuff. Now those are all things we're used to and know, and of course there will be new content in them, like 2 new Black Tank exclusive tanks, new Awakened monster tanks, and some holiday ops and sales. But, like, that's expected. I, for some reason, thought that with a roadmap, we'd get to know new info. And the only new info was letting us know that there's only 1 new tank line coming out this year for Cold War. Which also was a bit disappointing, as I was really hoping for 3 new tech tree lines this year for each mode, since we started this year off so strong and quickly with 3 new lines already, but hey, 2 for each mode is better than last year's 1 for each mode. So can I really complain? Of course I can. But anyway, the only piece of news for the 2025 roadmap was again something we already knew about, the completion and rewards for the celebration event that runs all year long, like Resolutions did last year with the Calliope. We were told when celebrations started that there will be a World War II and Cold War tank as rewards this time around, And all this roadmap did was finally tell us what those tanks are, so let's look at those now. We're getting the M163 VADS and the M42 Duster. Presumably the VADS is Cold War, with an insanely fast-firing 20mm gun, and the Duster is in World War II with two 40mm guns. Both of these vehicles are anti-air tanks coming into the game, most likely as lighter tank destroyers. We know no stats about these vehicles, but it will be interesting how they will perform and what tiers or era they will be. But that's all we know about these tanks, is that they are coming from the Celebrations event. Which, if you've forgotten about that event, it is still on the website and requires Season Pass completions to earn these tanks. You'll get a discount on your choice of these two tanks per season completion, up to earning one for free entirely if you complete 5 out of the 6 seasons from this event, and completing all 6 will give you both tanks for free. So hopefully you haven't missed out on the first 3 seasons of the event. Lastly, in the ending segment, the extraneous stuff announced and mentioned were that there will be a new community map initiative that will also have an event for it next season, with a 7v7 event mode that will be made available for players to play on the new map and provide feedback for, as well as it being available to be played in custom games. They shared some images of the current work in progress of the map itself, and that it will be a 1400 by 1400 sized map with a smaller version planned for World War II at 1200 by 1200. The theming is that of a test site in the middle of nowhere, and it was even mentioned that there's a big crater on the map with long-range fights alongside it. We'll have to wait to get to play this map and get our hands on it for the next season, however, but I am definitely looking forward to another new map and not just a returning map. Also, I did pick up on a potential misspeak when answering a question about team health bars in-game. Zotz, the somewhat new creative director from what I could gather during the stream, mentioned that it might be a good feature for the bigger clans or regiments feature that they are working on. It could mean bigger clans are definitely coming, and or a potential reworking of the structures for clans. This is pretty big, but I could also be reading into something that has nothing behind it and was just a few words misused. Either way, I'm definitely paying attention to that, but keeping my expectations low at the same time. Last thing they mentioned was that Twitch drops will be a weekly thing apparently. Unfortunately, with the way they've been doing them with only CCs and CAs, means you won't get Twitch drops from watching someone like me sadly. But hey, that doesn't mean you can't watch me. Also, they are pretty lengthy requirements for little rewards, so I hope they tone them down and make them category wide for the majority of them. Otherwise, I might get pushed out of Twitch. Oh. Anyway, that's all for the Tankfest stream. 5 new tanks, 2 maps mentioned, new Cold War line in August, wish they would have told us what it was, for what little information we got, basically, and MoE changes. Some neat stuff and more substantial than last year's, but that roadmap was disappointing. That's it for me though, thanks for watching, see you in the next one.